please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Ashwani Gujral Mitesh Thakkar now joining us for BTST Calls. Ashwani, you go first. First, the thoughts on index. You make anything of this mild intraday reversal that we are seeing?
See, I think there is some strong profit booking, maybe even shorting, because Nifty was at a 30-point premium. From that, we are now down to 18 points. Similarly, on the bank Nifty, it went up 100 points and then immediately it was slammed down. So what we have done is we've taken short positions on the bank Nifty. The same can be done on the Nifty also. I think this profit booking could accentuate, and there is a good possibility that a top for the rally may have been made, because this sort of jerky downside happens only when the market's kind of getting exhausted in one direction. So let's see, next half an hour will tell us whether that has happened.
Okay, all right. Ashwani is saying maybe we're looking at a top. By the way, you saw the crude price flash. We are looking at almost 77 now.
Yeah, 77.
Not a great number, Anuj, to look at.
Yeah, 77 I think is what we have. So 80 now looks distinctly possible. Ashwani, so this short that you've taken on the bank Nifty, you reckon this could be carried forward as well, or this is just for the last half an hour you want to track?
See, everything starts with the last half an hour, and then you see how things play out. But, till what point does the market ignore crude? That is the important question. For the moment, it's for the last half an hour. Let's see by the end of the day if we get further traction on the downside. Okay. As far as individual stocks are concerned, Titan is a buy with a stop of 985, target of 1025. Ashok Leyland, now strong stocks are coming off, so that's a sell with a stop of 165, target of 152. And Bajaj Finance is a sell with a stop of 1860, target of 1800.
Okay, all right. Mitesh, your calls. Okay, just as we get Mitesh, and I was looking at some of the crude plays as well. So let's pull up the aviation counters. I mean, anyway, Interglobe has been down. Jet is down about 2.5%. We'll just get spiced it up for you as well. Most of these stocks are trending down. OMCs obviously have had a very mixed day today. We'll get Mitesh in just a bit on the BTST ideas that he has. In the meantime, let's get ready and get prepped up for Eicher Motors. Sonia is joining in. Sonia, thanks for joining in. So we're expecting a good solid quarter?
Yes, we are actually. So, for Eicher Motors, it's sometimes like the HDFC of the auto world. I mean, very clear-cut numbers, good growth coming in, stable performance for the last many quarters. This time around as well, both the businesses have been firing on all cylinders. So whether it's the Royal Enfield business, the commercial vehicle business has done very well. In fact, the numbers will come up for you. The Royal Enfield growth that we've seen this quarter at 27% plus is something that we haven't seen for the last many quarters. So last 3 quarters on an average, it's been growing at about 16 to 18%. This quarter is 27%. Something that will definitely improve the realizations for the company. Not just that, the surprise element is the commercial vehicle business for them. Record high volumes this time around, very strong growth. In fact, CV volumes have grown by 33%, and this compares to about 37% last time. So 2 quarters back to back, we've seen 30% plus growth in the commercial vehicle segment, and all this will help them increase their realizations by 6.5%. Now, as we know, the commercial vehicle space has been growing quite a bit because of that overloading ban in various states like Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan, because of which higher tonnage vehicles are being sold. So all of this put together will result in good numbers from Eicher Motors.
Okay, good numbers expected from Eicher Motors. Sonia, thanks a lot for that. We're still awaiting those numbers. The stock, of course, has moved to low point as we speak. Low point as well for Federal Bank as well. And again, perhaps an issue of people going with long, good expectations. But Abhishek, what are we expecting from the numbers?
Well, Anuj, analysts on street are working with the lowest ever profit growth for Federal Bank. Our polls suggest a profit growth of 10.6%. Now, typically, if you see their historical range of profit growth has been in the region of 25 to 30%. What are the key numbers to watch out for? Now, the slippages which have been trending between 250 to 300 crore, anything below 300 crore will be positive. Net interest margin above 3.3% will be positive. They have a low-cost deposit share of 33%. And as we have seen with other private banks, low-cost deposit flow has been strong. So net interest margin above 3.3% will be positive. Loan growth, which fell in previous quarter to 22%, anything above 25% will be positive. Gross NPA, which was at 2.52%, anything below 2.5% will be positive. Our poll suggests an NII growth of 16%, while net profit to grow at 10.6%. Back to you.
Okay. Abhishek, what will be negative? Everything will be positive, you said.
The negative is on the earnings front. You know, what can be the impact of RBI circular on the provisions and asset quality, therefore?
Okay, Abhishek, we're going to watch out for both the positives and the negatives. Let's see what Federal Bank ultimately delivers. Mitesh, we've got you back. Let's get your ideas. Are you going with buys or sells now, last couple of minutes?
I have both the buy calls. I think, on stock specific basis, both these charts look very interesting. I have Tata Motors DVR, and I think there's hint of a short-term reversal on the intraday chart. So buy it with a stop at about 192.9, which is just below 193. Look for 207, 208 as the target in the next 2-3 days. And the other one is a buy on Cummins, where I would suggest a stop at 758 and look for targets of around 810.
Okay, Amrish, thanks a lot for that. Amrish, so what are good investment bets right now in this market, which you are personally taking?
In fact, I've been buying in the consumer space, been buying Dabur, ITC, HUL, even Imami now. I mean, especially after the results, when we have seen an extremely good correction, I really don't see much of a downside from here. It's corrected about 15% in the last couple of days. And from the rural focus, I'm looking at KSB pumps, which I think should be one of the major beneficiaries of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Yojana, and a completely debt-free company. So at these levels, I don't see much of a downside. And the other one, which again I'm seeing from the rural focus, is UPL. Although they sell only 20%, I mean, like 20% of the revenue only comes from India and the rest of it is from overseas. But that's, I mean, one of those few multinationals in that space which we have listed in our exchanges. So I think UPL, after that underperformance which you've seen in the last 9 to 10 months, I think should start performing now.
Since we're talking consumption, and it is entirely a consumption play, Titan also coming out with numbers tomorrow, and stocks are an interesting trajectory. It's the dip has been bought and it's very close to its 52-week highs. So going into earnings extremely strong. What's your view on this one?
I mean, just like what we just discussed some time back, I think Titan is the HDFC of the jewelry space. So I think this is one stock, one company which will continue performing, and I think people who have invested in the other jewelry space will also be shifting back to shifting over to Titan. So I think any sort of a correction should be bought.
Okay, we need to take a break. Before that, just pull out the intraday chart of Reliance. That was the one stock which was, of course, which led the post-noon rally on the Nifty. That's from the high point just slipped a bit. So from 985 down to 977. Ashwani, a quick word on Reliance.
See, Reliance is looking positive, and that was a large rally. So if the market continues to go up, I think we should get 1040, 1050 on Reliance.
Fair enough. We'll take a break, of course, and we'll discuss some more stocks and a couple of other interesting breaking stories as well post this break.
Welcome back. So while the mid-cap index is down about 0.5%, as usual, individual stocks keep catching your eye. PNB Housing is having a very good day. Yesterday, there were some blocks there on that stock. Right now, it's a 5% up move, days high on that stock. And Mahindra Logistics has been seeing plenty of buying last 1 week. Yeah, 13-14% up in just 1 week. And today is one more buying day for Mahindra Logistics. That stock's also at the highs of the day. Dilip Bhatt, joint MD of Prabhudas Leeladhar, is now joining in. Dilip, always good to have you on the show. Let me actually start by asking you about NBFCs. You know, we've seen some pretty dramatic moves on a group finance. Today, PNB Housing Finance is back in the limelight. How do you look at this universe now? And within housing finance, what's your best pick?
So obviously, we are talking about these second rung, not the front line. Front line, obviously, HDFC always remains evergreen. But I think within this pack, PNB Housing certainly looks very good. And I think even valuation-wise, though it has gone up quite a bit, it still looks very compelling even from these levels. And I think we'll continue to see a very good ROA. We'll continue to see a very good ROE. And I think even the growth rates, CAGR, will still continue to be in the region of around 20% plus for a couple of years more. So I think PNB Housing looks good. I think Can Fin Homes is another stock that one should look at because it has come off from the highs for whatever reasons that we all know of. But still from the current level, I think Can Fin Homes looks pretty interesting because that's a story where you still have a very good ROEs of 20% plus. And I think even the growth rates have been pretty decent. I think taking both the things into account, both these stocks in the housing finance space looks very attractive.
Okay, that's interesting. By the way, just pull out intraday chart of United Spirits once again. Quite a bit of selling pressure on that for last 3-4 days now. And once again, making lows of the day is what we have on United Spirits. United Breweries also normally follows that. So see the intraday chart of that one as well. Both these stocks for the last 2-3 days have been exhibiting some kind of weakness. Okay, that's also not quite at the low point, but that's also seeing quite a bit of weakness. So there is some selling pressure which is returning on these two names. Dilip, hi, good afternoon. Would you be a buyer of either United Breweries or Spirits or any other consumption name?
So I think as far as this United Group is concerned, United Breweries or United Spirits particularly, I think it's more to do with some kind of reaction to the judgment that has been delivered in London. Possibly people are apprehending that possibly some of these assets by way of shares also will come into the marketplace or may get sold off. So I think that possibly the worry still continues that somewhere some of these stocks may have been pledged. So I think that's the main worry. But I think United Spirit is another stock where I think it continues to be expensive. But the way the company has cleaned up, the way the company is really now got rid of the debt almost completely. And I think over the next couple of years, we'll see how the overall value added segment of the product profile will keep on improve in terms of its overall percentage of sales. And I think that itself will help company grow. So despite the fact that the valuation remains expensive, we think that it will continue to remain expensive because over the next 2 to 3 years, we'll see a reasonably very strong growth and a little more disproportionate growth in the bottom line.
Okay, that's USL in focus. Before we continue our conversation on individual stocks, let's get you some more market opinion. Earlier today, we caught up with Pramod Gubbi, head of equities at Ambit Capital, got his sense on the macro moves, which we've seen over the last couple of weeks, and whether the market can continue moving higher from present levels.
It's been a bit surprising, particularly given how yields have performed, currencies have performed, EM bonds have performed. But I guess some of the result season rub-off has also had an effect on some of the larger cap names as people sort of move out of small and mid caps and larger caps, and that sort of movement is shown at the index level as well. So once the dust settles down on the earnings season, perhaps some of the other factors that have been driving the markets in terms of the macro factors will come back, and that's when we'll see the impact of what's happening in the global bond markets play out in the emerging market risk assets as well.
But you don't think growth is strong enough to withstand these higher prices of commodities? I mean, are you not a buyer at this level?
Yeah, I mean, buyer would be mostly from a bottom-up perspective. I think on a micro perspective, we're clearly getting into a better shape in terms of earnings growth. We're seeing many more companies across diverse sectors demonstrating that. But from a market as a whole, I think the macros will overweigh. There's absolutely no doubt that growth has picked up at the economy level, but everything else that comes with growth is also picking up. You're seeing inflation picking up. It is an election year. There is a bit of fiscal profligacy. Current account deficit is picked up again, related to the pickup in local demand. That has had its own effect on interest rates and the currency itself. So, other than growth, every other parameter which was looking benign over the last 3-4 years is turning adverse. So at the macro level, you need to take cognizance of that. Having said that, the benefit of this pickup in growth towards corporate profitability and earnings growth should also be looked at with a positive view. And for the bottom-up investor, there could be opportunities where there is enough earnings growth visibility to justify the valuations that we're facing today.
Do you see earnings growth visibility in sectors like IT? Because that seems to be the common view now, Pramod.
Yes, we've been quite positive on the sector. Of course, valuations aren't that attractive as they used to be about, say, 12 months ago. But clearly, a lot of things are stacking up for the sector in general, but particularly for some companies which have made ahead of the curve investments into what is broadly called digital. At a time when IT spends, particularly in the West and in the US, are picking up, and you have a tailwind in the form of currency. So, to that extent, you'll have many legs of earnings growth for the IT sector.
Thoughts on metals, Pramod? We had a massive run in 2017. There's been some consolidation, but now stocks once again breaking out.
Yeah, I think given global growth situation, which is fairly benign and strong across both developed and emerging markets, commodities in general should do well. Yes, again, perhaps we are in the late stage of that cycle. So commodity stocks, metal stocks in general should be a straightforward play on those commodity prices, and we continue to be positive on that.
Pramod, what about the consumption space? We saw some excellent numbers, Jubilant and the like, even Godrej Consumer and the other old consumer stocks did well. Is that your choice at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think consumption will be the focus area, and in a year like this year, where we have a slew of state elections and ending up in a general election 12 months from now. So I think consumption in general, in particular, I think rural consumption should see disproportionate pickup in growth and flowing down to earnings as well. So yeah, I mean, I guess we are quite positive on consumption. Valuations aside, visibility of growth, clearly that's one sector which stacks up.
Within financials, of course, the bias has been towards private sector banks, retail-focused banks. But what do you do now? Do you think the trend is changing a bit? Do you think money will come back into NBFCs and any of these corporate-focused banks that you would increase presence in?
No, I think at a time when you're looking at interest rates rising, you'd rather focus on financials which have a strong liability franchise. So that you can benefit from the spreads expanding and that flowing into earnings growth. So private sector banks with strong CASA franchises remain our preferred bet. Perhaps a couple of NBFCs who have that sort of a pricing power, but then again, if you're exposed to the bond market, then I'm not sure how much of that will be sustainable. So our preference will be towards private sector banks focused on CASA. PSU banks, although some of them, you could argue, do have generally strong liability franchises, but I guess there are other concerns which sort of override on them, and we tend to stay away from them.
Well, counting down to close, 6 minutes left. Been a very volatile day today, but in a narrow range, of course. We are still in conversation with Dilip. But by the way, Jubilant Life's numbers flashing on the screen. The net profit is not in line with the estimates, though the margin number and the top line number looks good. But again, perhaps the market is reacting to the net profit number, so that stock from the high point has slipped a bit. Dilip, your thoughts on Tata Motors now? Consistently making 52-week lows, but would you want to take a bet here, or would you want to wait for an actual reversal in the JLR performance?
I think, unfortunately for Tata Motors, I think even stock price wise, some of the things have really not worked out very well for them. I think even when operationally they were doing pretty good, I would say, but somehow, there was a lot of apprehension that what kind of P you give or valuation you give for the overseas business and what kind of valuation you give for the domestic. As we all know that 90% of everything is of Tata Motors performance is driven by JLR. And I think unfortunately at this time JLR has started going on the back foot in terms of the volume numbers. And that is where the major concern still remains. So my own take in Tata Motors is that we can possibly see another 5 to 10% correction from the current levels. But on a risk-return basis, I think from those levels, once again, I think it will be a highly rewardable investment because risk will be limited, but I think the returns could be a little disproportionately more.
Okay, Magma FinCorp numbers coming through. Let me see. We did have a small poll and they grew their book by about 33, 34 odd % last time around. And the expectation was that they should be perhaps doing something similar this time around as well. We right now only have the net profit number. I mean, this year on year, obviously it's a turnaround story, so that the stock is getting excited perhaps with that itself. I have some estimates with me. So Ambit was expecting a net profit of about 70 crores. That's pretty much in line with what they have delivered. Phillip Capital's profit estimate was around 60 crores. So on the profit number, it looks quite okay. And it seems that's the first number that the market is reacting to. But
a lot of numbers, in fact. Now we'll have a Kokyu Camlin, I think, also will flash on the screen. That number also, I think the net profit number is quite decent, Surabhi. I think 5.8 crore versus 2.7 crore. So that also is quite interesting. Kokyu Camlin. Also up about 1%, right?
Yeah, so some residual numbers coming. We're still waiting for the big ones. Eicher Motors still not out. But since we're talking autos, Ambrish, just very quickly, your thoughts as well on Tata Motors. Today's JLR numbers, the April numbers were inspiring.
Absolutely.
But it's been a dog of a stock. What would you do with it?
But then, I mean, this again provides an opportunity because clearly JLR was a concern, may still be a concern, but we're just hoping that, I mean, after these numbers, hopefully the next couple of months, you could see better numbers going ahead. And at the same time, if you're looking at the India business, although it's small, CV is clearly, I mean, is the game of the future. And I mean, I would say, as far as Tata Motors is concerned, passenger cars with the new launches, I think that could be a surprise. So, I mean, the way I see it is, there's nothing much to lose from here because we have seen more or less the bottom. I think it's bottomed out at about that 328, 330 levels. But then it could be a wait. But once it again gets rediscovered, I think that is the time we will make more in Tata Motors as compared to possibly the other large cap stocks.
Okay, Amrish, thanks a lot for your time today. 2 minutes left for markets to close. Ashwani, what's your verdict for the day then?
See, there is selling at higher levels. There's no question about that. And also yesterday was a narrow range. Today again narrow range. So these narrow ranges means that as the market rallies, the momentum is lower. Otherwise, you would have, big bars. So that way, you would be cautious trying to chase this market now. Yes, you could buy the dips still, but it's getting more and more risky to remain long or to take fresh long positions. At some point, I think, your stop basically is the previous day's low. In case we open below it or start breaking below it, then, things could accelerate.
Okay, we're closing out. Just about a minute to go. So, Anuj, where does it leave us? I mean, yeah, there's a 30-point up move on the Nifty, but a bit indecisive, would you say? And mid-caps, I mean, mid-cap index pretty much ending at the lows of the day.
I think that's, for me, that's the key takeaway. Second day running now. Is it the beginning of fresh bit of decline in mid-caps or is it just weak hands getting out? I think, Surabhi, the big run has happened. 10,750. If you see the last 3 or 4 days, the high has been somewhere around 10,750 to 780. And, you know, now you have 2 more days before you have the exit poll and then the final outcome as well. So it's, you know, all boiling down to risk reward now. But key takeaway today also was that there are some earnings where the market is willing to give positive reaction as well. Arvind, for example, that one, of course, was perhaps the stock of the day. But in terms of individual stocks on the index, Tata Motors was up about 3%. In fact, it was a Tata day today. Tata Motors, Titan, TCS, Tata Steel. 4 out of 5 index gainers were all Tata stocks. UPL was up about 1.5%. Reliance was up about 1%. IndoSend, Larsen. And then, of course, on the downside, you had oil marketing companies, BPCL, HPCL, though they recovered, but still down. ICICI cooled off a bit after that monster rally yesterday. And Ultratech Cement was down about 2.5%.
On the mid-cap side of the market, very mixed picture emerging. The index is down 100 points for what it's worth. So let's bring up all the stuff. Of course, because of the oil price impact, you saw the pressure build up on aviation throughout the day. That continued. So Interglobe has ended down to 2.5%, Jet about 2% lower. SpiceJet relatively better off, but there's a bit of red on SpiceJet as well. We are talking weakness in stocks like Delta Corp, NCC, about 2%, 3% depending on which one you're looking at. Jubilant FoodWorks, no follow-up buying, interestingly, despite the fact that the target prices are so strong on the stock, 3,000 plus, but it didn't really rub off on the market price today. Then some earnings, Whirlpool, which had a negative reaction to numbers, that stock has ended lower. Mars Financial came out during market hours, again about 1.5% down on that stock as well. Federal Bank was very wobbly ahead of numbers. Now we'll get it post-market. Federal Bank was down about 2%, 2.5% throughout the day. Union Bank has ended on the lower side. Beyond that, some more names. If you're talking about losers, you know, you've got some of the other counters. Sundaram Fasteners is down about 3.5%, 4%. So these were some of the major losers. On the upside, it's not as if everything was down and out. First Source has had a phenomenal session, 12% up on that counter. Interestingly, NIIT Tech was not the stock of choice today in mid-cap IT. Let's pull up both NIIT Tech and even Tata Elxsi. These were not the ones that had the lion's share of attention. It was more about First Source today. HEG and Graphite, because of very strong commentary on graphite electrode pricing, 8% on HEG. Graphite also 4-5% up throughout the course of the session. HOEC, 6% higher, so big move coming in there. AU Small Finance and PNB Housing, 2 financial numbers you can't ignore today, about a 6% up move on both of those counters coming through. We've seen some buying on Indiabulls Ventures, about 5% up on that stock as well. And plays like BF Investments, not too sure what to make of it. AB Fashion and Retail. But the one solid stock that managed lots of buying was Arvind. That was a reaction to some very good numbers that we have seen from the company. So that stood out. Of course, for the other earnings, Anuj, I think we'll just have to wait by. These were the residual ones that were just coming out.
Oh, yes. Let's do one thing then. Let's take some final thoughts then from our guests. By the way, you know, a couple of stocks ended at the low point today, which was interesting. BEML ended at the low point and SRF as well. Dilip, as a house, do you have a view on BEML? That's becoming a bit of a play now on Karnataka elections.
Very frankly, it's not under our coverage, but I think on a broad macro basis, this stock continues to look pretty good and solid, though we don't have very detailed coverage. But I think over the next couple of years, we'll possibly see a good order intakes for them. Plus also, I think as the infra sector really, gathers momentum in terms of its execution, and I think that is where this company's, it get reflected in the company's performance. So I think as a macro play, it still remains one of the good bet to invest in.
Okay, Mitesh, final thoughts from you as well. What's your reading? Getting tired around 10,750. What would your approach be to tomorrow morning?
I think the bank nifty is at an important gap level, which is 26,200 to about 350. Now I think I would go long aggressively on the bank nifty only if 26,350 is crossed. Having said that, 10,750, if you look at the last 3-4 days of intraday chart, 10,750, 760 is kind of appearing as a mild resistance. So maybe you'll get a dip before you see continuation on the upside. I think as long as we don't break below 10,600, 630 zones, I think I would be possibly a buyer on dips on the indices. Given the fact that the bank nifty is at a resistance level and the nifty showing mild signs of tiredness, there could be mild dips happening in over here, which I would be still buying into. But otherwise, on a stock-specific basis, we are trading with more of long bias.
Okay, all right, gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us on Closing Bell today and taking us all the way up till 3:30. We'll see you again soon. Right now, a quick break. On the other side, we told you first, and now this mega e-commerce deal between Walmart and Flipkart is a reality. All the highlights coming up after the break. Welcome back. Now let's get you the latest in the Binani Cement Dalmia Bharat saga. Now, Dalmia Bharat has written to lenders and to the resolution professional of Binani Cement requesting the Committee of Creditors and the RP not to consider Ultratech's offer. Ritu is joining in with more details. Ritu, just join the dots because Dalmia anyway is getting a little more aggressive. They've also, I believe, moved the Supreme Court on this already, right?
They have moved the Supreme Court, in fact, asking that the Thursday meeting not be held and that the banks not consider Ultratech's offer. So in continuation with that, they yesterday wrote a letter now to the Committee of Creditors and to the resolution professional asserting why they should not consider Ultratech's bid. And what they're alleging is Ultratech so far has acted in concert or together with Binani Industries. When they submitted their resolution proposal for Binani Cement, they said, Binani Industries would raise money via Ultratech and they had signed a deal for Ultratech to then acquire Binani Cement. So therefore, they're citing this Section 29A of IBC where any person acting jointly or in concert with a disqualified person will also be ineligible under Section 29A. That is, the law that they're quoting in this letter that they've written to the bankers and to the resolution professional, urging them not to even hold that meeting on the 10th of May, not to consider the revised offer of Ultratech, which we understand is about 60 crore rupees, which is far higher than what Dalmia Bharat's offer stands at. We also understand that in the letter, Dalmia Bharat has asked for a meeting with the lenders to explain and to substantiate this case. But this, even as the Supreme Court hearing in the matter is on the 10th of May, as well as that Committee of Creditors meeting, which will take into consideration Ultratech's new offer.
Okay, now that's not on. There is another major resolution that we need to talk to you about, and that is the JP Infra case. Now, what's happening there? Because there suddenly the promoters are saying that, oh, we have the money and we want to come to the table as well.
Well, JP's case is very curious. The voting has actually ended now and we're just awaiting the final results. But the word from the bankers is it is very unlikely that the resolution plan will be passed by the lenders because the Lakshadweep offer, which is a Suraksha and Dosti JV, they were declared as the highest bidder as H1. Their offer is about 7,350 crore rupees, which involves 4,000 crore rupees for the land bank, some 1,200 crores in cash repayment and other 2,000 crores in long-term NCDs and a small equity stake to the bankers. But the lenders feel this is grossly undervaluing the company. They claim that the liquidation value itself, because of the large land bank that JP Infratech holds, is close to 12 to 14,000 crore rupees, and the debt of the company is 10,000 crore rupees. So there was no reason for them to accept any sort of a haircut. So it is unlikely that the resolution will be passed. Of course, we're waiting to hear the final word, from the resolution professional and bankers about what happened in today's meeting. But that is the final offer that was on the table, and that is something that has been voted on.
Okay, all right, Ritu, thank you very much for that. Now, those are all the deals that are not through yet, still in discussion. Let's talk about the big one that's officially a reality. And yes, we are talking about Walmart's purchase of homegrown giant Flipkart.